I will tear your soul apart. We have such sights to show you. Like, for instance, this exquisite Hellraiser box set from Arrow Video. Hi, I'm Dave Watkins, and this is the Quartet of Terror that includes the first four Hellraiser movies in 4K. Now, the first four Hellraiser movies were the only ones to be released theatrically, and they were the only four to date to have involvement from the series creator, Clive Barker, other than the 2022 remake. Now, after this, starting with the fifth one, there was a noticeable dip in quality, not just in production values, but specifically the scripts, where a lot of the movies were based on spec scripts that weren't even Hellraiser movies to begin with, and they somehow just shoehorned the Cenobites into them. The most famous Cenobite being Pinhead, played in for the first, I believe, 8 movies by Doug Bradley. Now, the Cenobites are these interdimensional demons who could go through different dimensions, but they're typically in the movies they're summoned by somebody who solves a puzzle box, and that brings them forward, and they take that person back to their hellish dimension, and they torture them, and then they see what their threshold is for pain, and this seems to go on indefinitely. I think some of them eventually become Cenobites and go and torture other people, that sort of thing. But let's take a look at this. So the front of this, you have the Cenobite Pinhead, is the most famous one, and you see it has behind here, you can kind of see some redness, and that's from this, once you pull this out. And this has got the movies in it, and here is a very thick book that has a lot of pictures in it. This is from Hellraiser 2. It says, "I am in hell, help me." She's assuming that that's her dad calling for her to come back to hell to save him, but it turns out to be somebody different. And it's not that hard to figure out who it's going to be. But it's got a lot of it's got pictures of different movies, and it's got a lot of information in here. It's a very nice book, and it is a hardback book. Let's see if there's anything more. So this is another one from Hellraiser 2. But there's Frank. I believe that's him from the first one. He appears in the second one as well. And this is from the third Hellraiser. Wait a minute. It might be the fourth. So let's take a look at the movies themselves. Here's what the back of this looks like. Now, this is a plastic slipcover. And then you get inside. This was just red. And so when you get inside, you see like just a skeleton on the back. What we saw before. But now it's white. One of the discs fell out here. Alright, so the movies, they're all kind of just on there. They got just a red disc. You got all 4 movies, got their own house disc. Now there is another version of this, a newer version. This one is out of print now, but there is a version that has just the slipcases for each movie, which I don't know. I kind of might prefer that over this, but this is cool, especially because it is out of print and it has this really awesome book that comes with it. So every one of these movies will have a 4K transfer from the original camera negative, and for the most part, they're definitely all an upgrade. Arrow did put out a Blu-ray release of the first 2 Hellraiser movies, and they were very nicely done. And some people might prefer that transfer. I think here it looks a little sharper, a little bit more clarity. First Hellraiser movie is the most iconic. It's the one that more people have probably seen, and the story is simpler. The budget's a little lower, but the story is simpler, so it's easier to follow, even though it is a little complicated. And you don't see that the Cenobites like Pinhead and those guys so much until later in the movie, and they don't have a lot of screen time, but the screen time is very effective. The second one, the budget was higher, and they're able to go into the hell dimension, and they're in there for a pretty good bit in the second half of the movie. So, and it looks pretty cool for a movie from '88, which was a year after the first one. So they went right into that one. The third one takes place in 1992.
2. The third Hellraiser movie, really it's probably the third best one. I like this one a lot better this time than from what I remember. It's been a long time since I've seen it, and this is the first time that Pinhead, like Doug Bradley's Pinhead, makes the biggest appearance. He's the first time he's top billed. In the other movies, the Cenobites they're not in it quite as much, but in this one they have to bring him back because they get killed at the end of the second one, but they have to bring his Cenobite back in the movie. What really strikes me in this movie, and something that they didn't really follow through with very good, but they have. So there's a guy, like a criminal who owns an art gallery or something like that. He gets hold of the puzzle box, and he, kind of finds Pinhead, and he starts to bring him back to life. He's feeding Pinhead people, kind of like they did in the other movies with Julia and Frank. They're feeding him people to bring him back to life. But he has a reporter gets hold of this, a lady reporter, and she's investigating the scene, but she finds his girlfriend, who he's abusive to. He kind of takes her in, and then and then they have like several scenes where they're just trying to. She's looking into the case, and she's trying to protect his girlfriend. But there's very good chemistry between the two women, and they didn't follow through with it very good, because it almost seemed like it could have gone, like they could have been like a couple almost, especially the way that they have the girl hanging around the apartment in like skimpy type of clothing, and then they definitely had a type of thing going, even though the characters are probably both straight, but the way that they had to know when they were shooting it that they felt this type of chemistry between them, but they never really go through with it. What happens eventually, unfortunately, the girlfriend goes back to the boyfriend, and then she gets turned into a Cenobite, so that it kind of stops the whole thing. But at the end of this, there's very cool sequences where there's this bar, and then everybody gets killed, and they all come back as different types of Cenobites, because all the other Cenobites from the first two movies get killed at the end of the second one. Now, some of them might be a little over the top. There's one with like a video camera head, and then there's like a disc head and all that. But it's for that time. I thought it was a little cheesy the first time I saw it, but I liked it more this time. I really liked the fact that Doug Bradley playing Pinhead is in this one more than the other ones. The fourth one is one that had a lot of problems in production, and on this release they have a print on here that's in standard definition quality, so it doesn't look as good as the 4K, but they do have a work print that shows what they were originally making before the studio got involved and started making them change things. I actually, funny enough, I prefer the studio's version. That's because what they added, I think both versions are lacking. I remember the movie, I thought I liked it more the first time I saw it. The fourth Hellraiser movie takes place in 3 different timelines: in the 18th century, in modern day, well, for present day for at the time, which was 1996, and in space. You got to go to space. You always just got to go there. But I didn't like the space part. The first time I watched this, the space part I liked it more. But this time it seemed a little. I've seen a lot of other movies in space, and they're all kind of alien clones. So it kind of happens here. It's like instead of alien, you got Cenobites on a space station or whatever it is. But I really like the 18th century part. That's really, to me, the best part. And the middle part is good, but it's truncated. Now the work print edition, which was the edition that the studio looked at, and they're like, okay, we got to change this. It's not quite working. So the things that they changed is the space stuff. They don't have it at the beginning. In the theatrical version, it starts out in space, and then the movie's kind of told in a flashback. So the same actor plays 3 different characters. In the 18th century, he is the person who creates the puzzle box that brings the Cenobites from their dimension. So in the work print edition, most of the movie takes place in present day time, and they really truncated that for the new version. That most of what has been cut out is exposition and not anything too exciting, but it does add it does add something to it, to the extent of the other felt like there was scenes missing, but it doesn't add anything very exciting to it, and it doesn't make the movie better per se. It might make it seem a little more complete, but then you're missing like a lot of the other nice stuff that the studio had them shoot, like more of the 18th century, including more scenes with Adam Scott, an early role for him. But anyway, let me know your opinion of this. This is a very nice, exquisite Hellraiser box set. I'm Dave Watkins, and if you get a chance, hit that subscribe button.